Welcome to Spurs Focus, your go-to spot for daily Tottenham news, transfers, and match updates. Don't forget to support the channel by hitting that subscribe button now. Let's dive into today's top story. Tottenham Hotspur are back in the Champions League, but it wasn't the glamorous return fans were hoping for. A bizarre goalkeeper blunder gifted Spurs a 1-0 win over Villarreal in a night more about grit than glory. Still, Thomas Frank has delivered 4 wins from his first 5 games and 4 clean sheets a start that could set the tone for Spurs' European journey. Let's break down the drama, the reaction, and what this result really means for Tottenham's future. As Champions League returns go, this didn't quite have the glitz and glamour expected, but ultimately the job was done. There was something just a little off-key about the whole evening. It began with a downbeat rendition of Can't Smile Without You, a song always better after a game than before, as it's not exactly an adrenaline-pumping ditty. The crowd only numbered 54,755 for Tottenham's return to Europe's biggest competition, which said as much about the pricing of the fixture as anything else, leaving the club scrambling to send emails to fans in the weeks ahead of the game, telling them that they could bring up to 6 friends to sit with them. The first home Champions League game at Spurs in 2.5 years should have brought a sellout crowd in the 62,850-seater stadium rather than rows of empty seats. Even the Villarreal fans couldn't be bothered, with just 220 of them making the trip in their bright yellow shirts out of the 3,000 allocation. The football on the pitch matched the mood. Between them, the two sides huffed, puffed and toiled and could only muster a single shot on goal, Pape Matar Sarr's low shot from outside the box. Even the goal that won it came from a moment of farce. Lucas Bergvall's low cross appeared to have been collected by Villarreal goalkeeper Luis Jr., only for the Brazilian to inexplicably allow the ball to roll out of his hands, down his body behind him, and across the goal line. Spurs rode their luck in the remaining 86 minutes, and could easily have had Xavi Simons and Mickey van de Ven sent off on another night, but ultimately Thomas Frank got to the end of a night lacking in any star quality with a debut Champions League victory. In any other year, Tottenham might have crumbled. They might have generously gifted their visitors a late leveller to share the spoils. Instead, in the toughest competition in the sport, against a tricky side with previous and shocking so-called bigger clubs, Spurs grabbed all 3 points to kick off their Champions League campaign. It means the North London side are now unbeaten in their past 21 home games in European competitions. I thought it was a big win. In any competition, it's good to get 3 points and get a good start. I'm happy with that, Frank told Football.London. I'm happy with the clean sheet. I'm happy with the defensive side of the game. I think we were extremely good and limited. Villarreal to very little throughout the game. They were a good team I really admire. Obviously, offensively, we struggled on the day to create something against a good team. They also defended very well, which we knew in the 4-4-2 structure. They were very aggressive. They needed the highest level in terms of touch, passing and decision-making. And they nailed that. Then it was a very even game that we edged in the end. What I like is that our foundation is strong. Now we are 4 games won, 3 in the Premier League, 1 in the Champions League, and we have 4 sheets, which is massive. He added, obviously, we are building the offensive structure more and more. Xavi Simons has just come into the club. It's fair to say he and Died need a little relationship, of course, to get going. No complaints, it's just natural. I think there was a spell in the second half where we decided to give the ball away every single time we had it. We gave the ball away, let's bring it back. Give it away, let's bring it back. Of course, it's a little bit easier to sit here with a smile, but of course, at that level, we will raise, of course. They say that all the best teams are built first from the back, and Frank certainly seems to be doing that. 4 clean sheets in 5 games with 1 goal conceded is not normal for Tottenham Hotspur. We talked a lot about clean sheet mentality this year, because we conceded a lot last year, Lucas Bergvall told Amazon Prime. Villarreal did not have a shot on target, so we did a really good job. Mickey van de Ven added, I think we are a difficult team to play against for sure. Structure-wise we are standing really good, and we all know what to do, so we're a difficult team to beat. The key for Frank is that this needs to be the foundation rather than the whole building. For a certain Nuno Espirito Santo went through his first month at Spurs with 4 clean sheets from the first 5 matches as well, including conceding only once. Of course, Frank's Spurs have scored more, with 9 goals in those 5 matches compared to Tottenham's 6 back in 2021. Using Xavi infield as a central attacking midfielder would require Frank to sacrifice one of the less creative quartet. He has plenty of affection for Rodrigo Bentancur and João Palhinha are a solid base, but also provide 2 options in the number 6 role for him to rotate between in weeks when the gap between matches is small. Sarr is a Frank favourite with his energy and movement, while Bergvall made it back-to-back Man of the Match awards with a positive Champions League debut, with his head coach praising the way he linked up with Porro and Kudus, and it was the young Swede who raced down the right to fire in the cross that embarrassed Lewis Jr. The 19-year-old midfielder does not lack confidence on the pitch or maturity off it. Bergvall has been handed long throw duties by restart coach Andreas Gorgsson when Kevin Danso is not on the pitch. In one first-half moment, even the teenager sensed the muted nature of the stadium and whipped his arms up and down to the fans in the West Stand to rouse them as he went to pick up the ball for one throw. It's remarkable that Bergvall was playing his 51st game for Tottenham in just over a year at the age of 19. For context, his captain Christian Romero has played 130 in 4 years. It shows how the young Swede has already become such a trusted and available part of the club. Bergvall is starting to catch the eye of the Premier League's legends and pundits. Alan Shearer had called his headed goal against West Ham one of unbelievable technique, and on Tuesday night, Wayne Rooney praised the Sweden international. Sometimes you forget how young he is because he played a lot of games last season, and the maturity with which he plays is fantastic, the former England striker told Amazon. So he shows different sides to his game this season. Last season he played a bit deeper, and to play as a number 10's not easy. It's not easy to get on the ball and be in the right positions, but I thought today he showed the different side to his game, which will only improve him in the future. Tottenham fans got to see a brief debut from Randall Kolo Muani. The 26-year-old came on for his first minutes since July 1st, and other than a knockdown for a Palhinha shot over, his main contribution in his 13 minutes was a yellow card for a high boot. The Frenchman is going to need more minutes to get sharper, and when Dominic Solanke eventually returns from his ankle problem, it will be interesting to see whether Frank uses Kolo Muani as a second striker or out wide, as well as through the middle. Frank has a large group of players desperate for football at the moment, and many of them took part in a late-night training session, with goals pulled into the middle of the pitch after the final whistle on Tuesday night. It was a remarkable day for 16-year-old Junai Byfield, who played 90 minutes as Spurs U19s beat Villarreal 5-3 at Hotspur Way on Tuesday afternoon. Then, after a quick shower and change, he raced across to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium because Frank had named him on the bench in the Champions League. Byfield was also on the bench in the UEFA Super Cup, and it shows just how highly the coaching staff at Spurs rate him. Next week's Carabao Cup tie against League One side Doncaster Rovers will give Frank a chance to hand out much-needed minutes to plenty within his squad, and Byfield will be hoping he might have a chance to become the club's second youngest ever debutant, just 13 days behind Mikey Moore. First up, though, for Frank and his players is a tough game at Brighton, who are yet to lose at home this season, but did also fall to Bournemouth last weekend as Spurs did in the previous round of matches. The 3 full days in between matches should allow the Tottenham boss to name his strongest lineup to travel to the Amex Stadium, ahead of being able to make changes in the Carabao Cup. Frank will want the defensive solidity to remain, but knows the goals must also flow as relationships grow between his players, new and old. Tottenham Hotspur are back in the Champions League, and so are their rising stars in the UEFA Youth League. On Tuesday, all eyes were on 16-year-old sensation Luca Williams-Barnett, who stole the show with his creativity. Tottenham Hotspur are back in the Champions League, and that meant a return for their youngsters to the European stage with the UEFA Youth League. The competition mirrors the first team tournament in the group stage, meaning Spurs' potential stars of the future face the same opponents as their senior counterparts and travel to each of the 4 away games in the league phase. It's a competition where stars can be made or found. In previous years at Tottenham, Troy Parrott began to make his name across Europe with goals in the tournament against Barcelona, Inter Milan, PSV Eindhoven Olympiacos twice, and Red Star. The young Irishman's appearances in the competition brought him not only to the attention of the Spurs first staff, but also scouts across the continent. Clubs like Dortmund circled, looking to take him out of England. Nowadays, Parrott is scoring goals for fun at a senior level at AZ Alkmaar in the Eredivisie, or was before a medial ligament knee injury last month ended a spell of 10 goals in 7 matches. Now the current crop of Spurs starlets are looking to make their name on the European stage. All eyes on Tuesday afternoon were on Luca Williams-Barnett, a 16-year-old number 10 creating plenty of buzz for his performances for the club's U18s last season, featuring a string of spectacular goals, including a number of efforts from the halfway line. The youngster, who turns 17 next month, netted a hat-trick in the U17 Premier League Cup final triumph last season, and after being promoted to the U21s, this term has 2 goals and 2 assists in 4 matches so far. He also starred for England U18s during his recent first involvement with them, and there are high hopes within the club for a player who was named on the bench in the Premier League in December last year by Ange Postecoglou, and 3 times in the Europa League despite his age. He benefits from having a physical frame that is a couple of years older than others of his age. On Tuesday afternoon at Hotspur Way, Williams-Barnett was the pick of the bunch among a Spurs team managed by U21s boss Wayne Burnett that contained plenty of players to keep an eye on. There was the centre-back pairing of Junai Byfield, who was on the bench for the recent UEFA Super Cup, despite also only being 16, and 17-year-old Malachi Hardy, who has also been involved with the first setup and on the bench in various games. Captain Callum Olusisi has made his Spurs senior debut, and at 18 looks a player ready to take a loan move in the Football League, while Tynan Thompson and Rhys Elliott-Paris are young attackers to watch. Villarreal were the first visitors to Hotspur Way in the competition, and swiftly showed that their technical ability and counter-attacking instincts were going to be something Spurs would have to get to grips with. It would be Williams-Barnett who first grabbed the game by the scruff of the neck. He picked up the ball in his number 10 role and threaded a perfect little through ball to Thompson, and the left winger slotted home comfortably over the onrushing keeper. Williams-Barnett had further opportunities. Soon after that goal, he picked up a loose ball from a poor goal kick and rounded the keeper, only to somehow screw his shot wide of the covering defender. He then volleyed over unmarked from a good position after the half-hour mark. Villarreal punished that profligacy as they grabbed a goal back with a bit of magic of their own, as Sergio Martin curled a fine finish from distance over goalkeeper Sam Archer. It took a rocket of a first-time strike into the top corner from Rhys Elliott-Paris on the turn to put Spurs back into the lead after good work from Leo Black to press and win the ball in the Villarreal box. The seesaw nature of the game continued though, as Iker Mateos fired home a low equaliser early in the second half for the Spanish side. It came after a little reminder that Williams-Barnett is only 16, as he tried a complacent flick on the edge of his own box, which gave the ball to the visitors out of nothing in a dangerous position. It's all part of a young player's development. For this teenager in particular, his natural gifts are clear. There are very early shades of the instinctive flair of Spurs mavericks of the past like Hoddle, Ginola and Berbatov.